coffee machine. I got a feeling that we're gonna be up all night. We're taking one for the team. It's not a week's holiday, it's all that it's a fortnight. Hidden in the dark like all the beams.
Hello. I didn't see you there. I was too busy reading these questions from Ms. Stewart's English class, and I thought I'd answer them. Can gaming help you? Absolutely. Now, I don't come from a position of anti-gaming. In fact, there's nothing more I enjoy than, after a day of filling young minds with knowledge, getting home and relaxing by killing people online, doing 360 no-scopes off castle walls and taking out an entire squadron with a hand grenade lobbed from the other side of the map. I get it. But gaming also can make students a little obsessive. A game can distract, but more on that later. What can games do to help? Well, I think games can help teachers. You think about it. Why is it that a student will spend over 200 hours on a game which gets increasingly difficult the further the student goes? How is it a student could show such commitment, such resilience against overwhelming odds, and yet fold after 2 minutes of difficult homework? And I think part of it is the feedback loop that games provide. Games keep students in a state of pleasurable frustration. What I mean by that is good games are not so easy that they become boring, but not so difficult that they disenfranchise the gamer. A good classroom is like that. A good classroom puts students in a place where they are challenged but not overwhelmed. Games provide constant feedback. There's a feedback loop in games that is so tight. You do something, you get feedback, and that feedback occurs in many ways. Haptic feedback through the hands, it's physical feedback, by colour changing online, on the screen. Maybe you're shot and things start going to black and white. By scores, so numerical feedback, by sounds. And if you're wearing good headphones, you can actually work out where other players are coming from just by sound. Games offer the temptation of an ever-changing environment. You're always curious, what's around the next bend? What's on the next level? And so you're engaged through all your senses, and you're also constantly told how you are going. And I think a good classroom looks like that. So games can help. They can help teachers, and they certainly can help students in moderation. Just like Daedalus said to Icarus, don't fly too high, don't fly too low, somewhere in the middle.
As he strapped the wings to his son Icarus, he gave a warning. Flying too near the ocean would dampen the wings and make them too heavy to use. Flying too near the sun, the heat would melt the wax and the wings would disintegrate. In either case, they surely would die. Therefore, the key to their escape would be in keeping to the middle. With the instructions clear, both men leapt from the tower. They were the first mortals ever to fly.
Games can work like reading and offer an escape, but the important thing that reading does is it lets you dream. It lets you fill in the blanks. It lets you paint the picture, whereas games dictate what you see, what you hear, but your brain does. And it suppresses, so it stops the release of melatonin. Now, melatonin is the thing, the chemical that puts you to sleep. Wilbur Brown says, "Dear Miss Stewart," no, call me Mister, prefer that. No argument there. We call it flow, this sense of timelessness, that you are so in the moment that all sense of time diminishes. And I was sitting there and I picked up a comic, Star Wars 17, you can Google it. has an orange cover and it has Luke Skywalker on the front, but I hadn't read a comic, and I was reading this and it was like the movie, but in my hands, and I could control how long I spent on each page, and I had this artwork that was just absolutely engaging, someone's version of the film. But it was a new story. I didn't have to wait for the next Star Wars film to come out. That wouldn't come out for years. And here, the saga was continuing in my hands. So the barber said, you can bring that up with you, and at the end of my haircut, he said, you can keep that. Never underestimate the power of a simple gesture of kindness. It was a defining moment, a junction. And I started reading comics. Fell in love with them. Scientific community that your brains are remapping themselves, that certain synapses are being strengthened and others are in a state of atrophy because they have a tendency to go for breadth. Many things superficially rather than one thing in depth. And that's why you're not satisfied. I think that's a great question, Bailey. I think too much of any one thing denies a person of a range of other things. So yes, I do. I think that socialisation is really important, and for students to spend recess curled up with a book, to me, that doesn't sit well. I think you should be using recess to extend your repertoire of social skills, to solidify the connections that exist between students. So yes, too much reading can be bad, but let's get real. Most of you, if not all of you, aren't in that situation. I mean, Netflix is telling me what it thinks I would like to watch. It's almost making decisions for me. That's a video for another time, this filter bubble, because in some ways it's stopping me from finding out the things that maybe I need to broaden my ideas, to broaden me as a person. It's not a comment on the book. In fact, it's a comment on how books can put me into a state of calmness, of tranquility, of serenity that is absolutely delicious. What's the difference between listening to audiobooks and reading a normal book? I think spelling is the first thing that comes to mind. When you're reading a book, you are seeing the shapes of words, and that inevitably helps with your spelling.